The 48-hour clock is ticking louder than ever. On March 22, 2026, just past 1 in the morning, the President Donald Trump sent a tweet that instantly echoed around the world. If Iran doesn't fully open without threat the Strait of Hormuz within 48 hours, from this exact point in time, the United States of America will hit and oblitate their various power plants, starting with the biggest one first. Thank you for attention to this matter. At first glance, it might seem like just another aggressive statement from, Donald Trump, but think about it. This isn't some casual comment. It's a precise deadline, a sharp ultimatum delivered in a way that feels like a ticking bomb ready to explode. So what does this really mean? Why is the Strait of Hormuz so important, and what could happen if this threat is carried out? Today we're going to carefully unpack this message, explore the contradiction behind it, and reveal why this moment could lead to a disaster few are prepared for. Let's begin with the basic. The Strait of Hormuz is a narrow stretch of water that connects Persian Gulf to the Arabian Sea. If you imagine the world's oil supply as a vast river, this strait is one of the most critical dams. Nearly 1/5 of all oil traded globally passes through this tiny waterway every day. This means any disruption here doesn't just affect one country, it shakes the entire global economy. When Trump issued his tweet, the message was simple and brutal. Either Iran opens the strait completely without any threat, or the US will respond by destroying Iran's power plants, starting with the biggest one and most critical ones. The logic is clear. Cripples Iran energy infrastructure to force compliance. But here's what things get complicated. Within just a day and a half, Trump's statement about situation swung wildly in different directions. It's like watching a roller coaster with no clear track. The Courtesy Ladder, a respected financial magazine that closely follows these events, highlighted 4 major contradictions in less than 36 hours. On Friday afternoon, Trump said, "I don't want a ceasefire with Iran." Just an hour and a half later, he shifted, saying the US was actually considering ending the war. The next day, Axios reported that Trump was planning peace negotiation, and then suddenly, out of nowhere, came the ultimatum: open the Strait of Hormuz or face the obliteration of power plants within 48 hours. But why does this matter? Because these flips show confusion, not a clear, well thought out strategy. When a leader changes their message that quickly and drastically, it signals internal chaos. It raises serious question. Is this a calculated plan, or is it reactive and impulsive? How prepared is this administration for the fallout? Meanwhile, across the political spectrum, voices are raising alarms. Congresswoman Yas Ansari described ultimatum is no uncertain term as a threat of war crimes against an entire population. She warned that this reckless course risks not just Iran's destruction, but the collapse of rational stability and possibly global security. Remember, this isn't about oil or military dominance. It's about power, survival, and a dangerous gamble where no one truly wins. Now imagine the consequences if Trump actually followed through the bombs Iran's power plant. The impact would be nothing short of catastrophic. According to Financial Times, quoting the International Energy Agency, this conflict is already gravest energy shock the world has ever seen. The head of IEA warned that it could take 6 months or longer just to restore oil and gas flows from the Persian Gulf to normal levels. 6 months. That's half a year of uncertainty and extreme volatility in energy markets. Prices would skyrocket, industries would struggle, and everyday people around the world would feel the pinch at the gas pump and in their electricity bill. But it's not only about Larijani, a well-known Iranian political figure that has been martyred recently by the United States and Israeli forces, put it into a stark terms. Trump was busted. I can destroy Iran's electricity within 1 hour, but I didn't do it. Larijani warned if Trump actually does strike those power plants within just half an hour, the entire region will go dark. Think about that for a moment. Imagine the lights going out across multiple countries within minutes. not just in Iran, but throughout the Persian Gulf, the Arabian Peninsula, and part of the Levant. Hospitals, airport, communication networks, water treatment plant, all plunge into darkness. Larijani added a chilling note: the darkness will provide a good opportunity to hunt fleeing American soldiers in the region. In other words, this blackout wouldn't just be an inconvenience. So it would create a chaos, confusion, and a deadly advantage for Iran's military forces. Why is this so devastating? Because energy grid in this region is tightly interconnected. Iran's power plants aren't isolated. They feed into a vast network that support critical infrastructure across multiple nations. Destroy those plants and you don't just harm Iran. You risk paralyzing an entire region's economy and daily life. No electricity means no pumping station for oil and gas, no refinement working at full strength, no ports operating efficiently, and stuff like that. Supply chain shut down or stop. Food processing grinds to a halt. Communication and emergency services falter. The ripple effect would be enormous. Now, here's the part that many might look overlook. Water. Yes, water, the most basic element of survival, is the secret weapon in this conflict. In this arid desert region, fresh water is scarce. That's why desalination plants, which turns seawater into drinkable water, are absolutely vital. Iran itself depends very little on desalination. Only about 3% its water comes from these plants. But the United States' closest allies in the Persian Gulf depend on them heavily. For some, desalination provide up to 80 or 90% of their drinking water. That's a staggering vulnerability. Take a look at this map. Across the entire Persian Gulf, there are about 450 desalination plants. But crucially, most of the water supply funnels through just a handful of key facilities. Saudi Arabia alone depends on the plants producing 4.6 million cubic meters of water per day. The UAE produces 4.7 million. Kuwait produces 1.6 million. Bahrain relies on 4 plants for 60% of its water. These are massive critical facilities and they are all at within range. And here's the chilling part. Iranian military sources have said that destroying these plants is as easy as drinking water. This phrase might sound almost casual, but it shows confidence that Iran's missile capabilities can precisely target and destroy these critical assets with devastating effects. But take Israel, for example. It gets 80% of drinking water from just 5 major desalination plants: Het Sorek, Ashkelon, Ashdod, and Palmachine. 5 plants, and that's it. Destroy those 5 facilities, and 80% of Israel's drinking water is gone. Picture what happens if those plants are damaged or destroyed. Without access to clean water, life in these countries would come to an standstill. Agriculture would fail, factories would close, cities would face water shortages, and panic would spread among millions of people. Water is life, and in this context, it is also a strategic weapon. While Iran's infrastructure may be built to withstand shock, its neighbors are incredibly exposed. This means Iran holds a hidden advantage, one that could force their adversaries to think twice before escalating the conflict. So what happens if US move forward with the bombing Iran's power plant? What dominoes will fall next? Nigerian politician Adamobi Garba, who has been closely following the Persian Gulf affairs, painted a stark picture on social media. He warned if Trump attacks Iran energy infrastructure, Iran will retaliate swiftly and decisively. Iran would move to shut down Bab el-Mandeb, the crucial strait at the southern end of the Red Sea. The Houthis, a group of Iran-aligned, people based in Yemen, are the key player here. They have been steadily gaining strength in the Red Sea region and have capacity to enforce such a blockade. Once Iran is attacked, it's expected the Houthis will become fully operational, effectively sealing off them. This closure would be a death blow to GCC countries. Already under pressure, Saudi Arabia and UAE would be forced to join the war, escalating regional conflict that could engulf the entire Middle East. At the same time, Iran's missile strikes would shift forces away from Israel and more towards GCC energy infrastructures. changing the entire momentum and balance of the conflict. This narrow water will connect the Red Sea to the Gulf of Aden and Arabian Sea. Why does this matter? Because Bab el-Mandeb is the only alternative shipping route for GCC countries like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Bahrain to access the Arabian Sea and the Persian Gulf at the same time. If it closes, the maritime traffic to and from these countries would effectively be blocked. Without Bab el-Mandeb open, there is no way for ships to bypass the Strait of Hormuz. This means the entire Gulf Cooperation Council's economy, or GCC, would be strangled, cut off from the vital import and export. Food supplies would downhill, energy export would halt, and electricity shortage would worsen. This is not some distant threat, it's a ticking time bomb ready to explode and drag multiple countries into a devastating war. Now, let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Trump's 48-hour ultimatum isn't just a bold threat, it's a high-stake gamble. If triggered, it risks turning a tense standoff into a full-scale regional war that nobody wants. Iran holds the strategic card. Its geography gives it control over two of the world's most vital maritime checkpoints, the Strait of Hormuz and the Persian Gulf, and Bab el-Mandeb at the gateway to the Red Sea. These narrow waterways are lifelines for global energy and trade. Moreover, Iran's official military doctrine includes retaliatory strikes targeting energy, its infrastructure, and desalination plants belonging to America, and the regime in the region will be targeted. This is also no idle threat. It signals a willingness to escalate by targeting essential civilian infrastructure, which would have far-reaching humanitarian consequences. This is not a simple game of brinkmanship, it's a trap. One that, if sponged, could devastate energy markets, crush food supplies, and plunge millions into crisis, all while dragging the US and its allies into a costly, unwinnable war. So the 48 clock is still running. The world is watching with bated breath. What happened next could change the course of history. So stay firm, stay alert, and be ready to understand the next development as they unfold. If this analysis helped you make a sense of what's happening, please like, subscribe, and turn on the notification. That way you won't miss our next deep dive into this unfolding crisis. Thank you for watching.